When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm, there's a golden sound and the sweet melody of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, 'cause you never Never, never alone. With hope in your alone. God's with us always. Our inner being is with us always. Always loves us.
Thank you, Terry. Well, I had a blank spot in my bookings, and I called Bonnie, and she agreed to make arrangements to be here today. It was probably between 20 and 30 years ago that we met in Fayetteville at the Unity Church down there, and our paths have crossed multiple times over the years, and she has been in and out of this church for years. And we are so grateful to have the delightful Bonnie O'Boyle join us today. Please make her welcome.
Thank you. Hello, all you love lights.
Hi.
If you don't know me, some of you might not, I'm Bonnie O'Boyle, and my talk title today is When One Door Closes, ... We all know that saying, right? When one door closes, another opens. But sometimes, you guys have had this experience, I'm sure, one door closes and you're in the hallway waiting for the other door to open. Yeah. How many people in the audience right now are in the hallway in some aspect of your life? Okay. So I heard a speaker once say that if you find yourself in the hallway between where one door closes and another door opens, Find the other people in the hallway and hold hands and sing Kumbaya. So you got to find your hallway buddies, right? We're all going through some kind of transition here and there. Change is the only constant in life. So how do we navigate this? How do we stay in this wonderful feeling that we have when we're here together with our spiritual community? The Dalai Lama says that the only way to fail is to quit. And there's lots and lots of examples in famous people or some not so famous people who have overcome adversity. Walt Disney, you may or may not know, was fired from a job for lacking imagination.
Wow.
I know, right? I know. And Michael Jordan didn't make the varsity team when he first tried out. He had to work really hard to get good enough to play basketball, and now he's like one of the most famous basketball players of all time, right? J.K. Rowling, who wrote the Harry Potter series, was rejected by 12 publishers before she finally found one who would publish her book. And of course there's the Wright brothers and their airplane experiments, and finally, like now we can get on a plane and not be comfortable necessarily, but we can fly and go where we want because of the Wright brothers. We have lights and light bulbs because of Thomas Edison trying hundreds of times with failures, but never giving up and persisting and keeping on. Jim Carrey is one of my very favorite actors. I love him. He's a comedian and an actor. And he had to quit school because his dad had gotten laid off from his job, and he had to help work and help support his family. And he saw his dad, like his dad could have been a comedian, and his dad was a salesman and ended up failing at that because he got laid off. And Jim decided in that moment that you can fail at doing what you don't want to do. So you might as well do what you want to do, because you could fail at that too, right? So you could fail or succeed at anything. And I once saw him do a commencement speech, and one of the lines he said was amazing. And you can look up, Jim Carrey commencement speech. He has a funny hat on, that way you'll know it's the right video. But he says, our eyes are not just viewers where we receive information. Our eyes are projectors, and we're overlaying another story on top of what's really happening. And so you might as well make that story positive and funny and delightful for people, right? Benjamin Franklin couldn't afford to go to school. He had to leave school, and he educated himself through reading lots and lots of books. How many people here have heard of Nick Vujicic? Nobody. Oh, this is so exciting. You guys got to go YouTube this guy. He was born with no arms and no legs, and he had 1 foot on his left side, I think. And he is a nationally renowned speaker who goes around speaking a lot to teenagers in high schools to inspire them. And he can swim. He can play sports and games. He always thought he wouldn't have a wife and that nobody would want him. Now he has a beautiful wife who goes and travels with him. And he always speaks about how no matter what challenges you have, you can overcome them. You just have to figure out how to do it. And he tells the girls they're beautiful, and he tells the guys in the audience they're the man. And these teenagers just sitting here crying because they're sitting here worrying about a pimple. And then can you imagine having to go to school with no arms and no legs and being able to navigate that tough school environment? Well, Nick Vujicic did, and he inspires many people towards their greatness through that, and towards getting past their, difficulties and challenges. There's a young woman named Bethany Hamilton who is a surfer, and she, when she was 13, her arm got bitten by a shark, and she had no arm anymore. One of her arms was gone. 1 month later, she was back on a surfboard, and she still competes. If I got my arm bit off by a shark, I'm not sure that I would ever want to go back in the ocean. But this young lady is just brave-hearted and did it. And one of the most touching stories of overcoming adversity and turning it into something good is Viktor Frankl, who is one of the founders of psychology. And he was a Jewish man in Nazi Germany. And they had killed his children, and his wife was heading to the gas chamber, and she slipped him her wedding ring on her way out. And they kept him alive because he was a scientist and they could use his brain. And so he had his little cell, and he had hidden this wedding ring his wife had given him before she passed away. That's the only possession he had left. And they did a shakedown of his room, and they found it, and they took it from him. And he was absolutely devastated, the last thing he had. And he decided in his devastation that they could take everything from him. They could take his family, his friends, all of his possessions, but they could not take his mind. They could not take his ability to make meaning of what was happening to him. And he went on to create an entire psychological theory about meaning making, and how when we go through trauma, we get to decide what that means for us, what we're going to make out of that. Say, more famous people. I know, there's another famous person I want to talk about. Me! I'm pretty famous, and I've had lots of adversity to overcome in my life. I've been fired from a couple of jobs, and each time it was just, I got my current career as a therapist because of being fired from a job. And I feel like that I've been targeted by a couple of bosses. One boss, in my first job, I've worked 35 years with people with developmental disabilities. Now, those are some gurus in overcoming adversity, right? People who have intellectual disability or autism, and that's my specialty still, but I also have worked with lots of people with physical disabilities. But in my first job doing that, this boss, I don't know why she didn't like me, but she just didn't. And she would make jokes about it. She would tell everybody, haha, you know, Bonnie knows I don't like her. And it was mean, and it hurt my feelings. And she would tell my partner that was supposed to be helping me help the clients get their hygiene and their showers done. She would tell her, no, come see her watch TV with me. It's so funny to make Bonnie do all the work. And so I was working so hard, but I loved my clients. And I stayed in that job, and she ended up getting fired for verbally abusing a client, and I got her job. And several years later, she called back, or probably about a year later, she called one of my coworkers and said, hey, I'm thinking about applying up there. Is Bonnie still the supervisor? And that other person was like, yeah, she is. And she didn't apply. I wouldn't have been vengeful, though. I would have given her a chance. But anyway, so I overcame that and came out on top from it. There was another job that I had where the supply lady was mean, and everybody was terrified of her. And I just kept killing her with kindness. I was just so sweet to her. And I asked her who the cute kids were on the picture on her desk. And she got to where finally she liked me. And then everybody else would come to me and be like, Bonnie, can you go get me some paper clips? Because they were afraid to approach her about it, but I wasn't. She was my friend after that. So there's a more recent example I want to share, in that I do what I call 5-dimensional traveling. And when I travel, I just get in this headspace where I'm like, God's with me, God's within me, all around me, and I am here on a mission to uplift everybody. And I've had some pretty magical things happen, like getting in the security line and there's only 3 people ahead of me, or not having anybody in the line when I'm checking my baggage. You know, so there's some pretty amazing like synchronicities that have happened because of that. But also, it doesn't always happen that way. And I have to, if I'm traveling 5th dimensionally, I have to accept whatever spirit throws at me. So in my last trip back from Washington, when we were getting off the plane, they told us that we were gonna have a 5-hour delay, and I was gonna hang out in the Dallas-Fort Worth airport for 5 hours. My initial reaction was, oh great, I get to have adventures in the Dallas-Fort Worth airport for 5 hours and hang out with all of these great people. And everywhere I went, I kept saying things like that. Oh, I'm so glad I got to interact with you. You're so wonderful. I'm really glad I had this layover, this delay for 5 hours. And people would say, I want her attitude. And people were uplifted. And then finally, after they had moved us back and forth to like several different gates, and then eventually moved us back to our original gate, they announced our flight was canceled. They were going to have to put us up in hotels. And you know, some people were crying and trying to get a ticket to go back home, and like we all said, we had been trauma bonded through this. It was really a difficult experience for all of us. I was helping people with their little kids and stuff. But I was standing in the line as the customer service people were trying to help people work out where they were going to stay or where they were going to fly. And I was coming from a place of possibility. And I was supposed to sing in the choir, the Christmas choir at Unity of Fayetteville the next day, and I really wanted to get back home. And sitting there thinking of possibilities, I realized that I had a friend who lived in Siloam, not too far from the Tulsa airport, and I was able to get routed to the Tulsa airport, and I was able to speak at Unity the next day. But that whole flight was about uplifting my fellow human beings. It wasn't about me and whether I had discomfort or any of those kind of things. It was about, we're all in this human experience. And it can be difficult and it can be hard and messy, but we get to decide how we respond to the messiness of life. So, my dad was in Alcoholics Anonymous. And in his younger years, he was in a meeting, and this man came into the meeting, and this man said that after the meeting, he was going to go and kill the man that he had just now found out had molested his daughter. And all the people were trying to talk him out of it. It's not going to help your daughter if you go to jail. I don't care, he'd say. It's not going to help your daughter for you to hurt this guy. I don't care. It's going to, he didn't care about anything. And then my dad said, can I say something? And my dad said that, he said, my daughter was also molested when she was a child. And now she's a therapist helping children who have been through trauma and difficulties. And if there's anything my daughter has taught me, is you can take anything in your life and turn it into something positive. And that man came up to my dad after the meeting and said, thank you. You're the one that changed my mind.
Wow.
So when you show up in this way, it changes lives. It saves lives. It helps people. My dad died in February of this year. It's been a little bit rough, but I could not of course there's the human side of me that grieves the loss of my dad, right? Any of us losing a close family member is going to grieve. But a poem came out of it that I wanted to share with you guys. And this poem was born out of my habit of mindfulness. I enjoy going to silent retreats and really just paying attention to my body and where I feel my emotions in my body. So this is called Death Cannot Touch Me. I observe my body doing its dance with grief as my brain fogs and I get the anxiety knots and I have the weirdest dreams. But I am beyond that. My soul cannot be touched by death, nor by any adversity in this human existence. Yet the body weeps and sleeps, and the brain worries, and the heart emotes. I am with my body, and sending it compassion, for the human journey is hard, and the suffering is real. While I also remember, I am more than the body. I am the being made of pure light, and the soul made of pure love. And because I am composed of light and love, death cannot touch me. And the adversity of this human experience is but a leaf blowing by on the wind. So I'm in no way recommending that anybody puts their human aside and says, put that grief away. I saw Matt Kahn speak one time on a video, and he said, it's good to spend about 50% of your energy like being with your human experience and giving yourself compassion for this human experience, and about 50% of your energy reaching for that next higher thought, that fifth dimensional beingness I was talking about. So when we go through things, we can be the bridge between heaven and earth if we don't leave our human behind. If we're the maternal presence with this inner child and giving this inner child comfort. Because we all feel fear sometimes, right? That's our inner child, doesn't think that he or she can handle what's going on. But that inner child, we can parent that inner child. We can be the mother and father to that inner child and help that precious little kid be able to feel safe and secure because we have our 5-dimensional being to help us through it. We always have, we never walk alone, like Terry said, right? We're never alone. We are always with God with us, every step of our lives. And a friend of mine who did not want me to say her name said, it's not about the thing, it's about the experience, right? So being present with the experience helps us. I took a class that was a multiple months class called Being of Light Training. I have a certificate in my office that certifies that I am a being of light. And I know, it's very impressive, right? My ego loves that. Did you see my head get a little bigger? Maybe, I don't know. But in Being of Light, they taught us to have neutral perception and watch for the isness of life, kind of like a river. You can watch the flow of the river and stay out of the being stuckness if you just follow the current. So that in Buddhism, they talk about holding life with an open hand, right? You don't push away experiences that are uncomfortable. You don't grasp experiences that are comfortable. You just watch life happening. And it's a very powerful way to approach life, to watch it happen and to just be as neutral as you can. Because when we're not neutral, we get static in our intuitive faculties. It's like turning the radio dial a little bit off of the station, and we can't quite get that belief or that feeling that God's with us. We can't hear the small, still voice of God talking to us because we're so staticky with our emotions that the messages can't get through. So neutral perception is very powerful. There's a Japanese proverb that actually came up. I meditate every day using an app called Insight Timer, and it gives you an inspirational quote. And this was today's inspirational quote. And I thought, well, I've got to add this to my talk. This is perfect. The Japanese proverb is, the bamboo that bends is stronger than the oak that resists. Isn't that cool? I love that. And there's all kinds of examples in nature of how we, the bamboo bending or the palm trees bending. Coal under pressure turns into a diamond. Diamonds are so beautiful, right? The beautiful lotus grows out of the mud. And you might not know this, but when a caterpillar goes into the cocoon, it turns into imaginal goo before it turns into a butterfly. But if you wait till that butterfly is fully formed and starts to break out of the cocoon, and you very gently to help it open the cocoon and help it out of the cocoon, the butterfly can't fly because it's the struggling against the cocoon that makes its wings strong enough for it to take flight. I like to use the analogy of like an arrow, like if you're pulling back an arrow, there's tension, right? But then the arrow flies farther, the more tension there is. So these things can kind of help us to navigate these instances, right? I'm getting XP if you play video games, which I'm not sure if any of you guys do, but experience points. Yeah, okay, so you get XP with life, right? You get wisdom points with life. That's why the older we get, the less things probably impact us because we've had so many experiences that it's not going to throw us off as much generally the older that we get, because we get wiser the older that we become.
Hopefully.
Now, I know you're very wise. I have a dear friend, her name's Andrea Garth. She has also spoken here, and Andrea teaches me so much. But one thing she does, and leads by example, is that when something happens that you would think was a negative thing in her life, she says, Spirit knows what I need. And so I've really adopted that of, well, if it's happening for me. Eckhart Tolle says, how do you know if something is happening for your soul's evolution? And then he answers himself by saying, it's happening, so it's for your soul's evolution. Right? So we're all sitting here just evolving, and things happen, and if we look at it, if we get a habit of looking at it like, wow, God's here, Jesus is involved, Buddha is with me, whoever your mentors are, it's all within you. This is the power that we have. We are powerful creator beings. And I like to look at God as the magical Band-Aid that heals all. You know, no matter what happens, if I'm struggling and suffering, I'm going to be struggling and suffering, but there's something about just leaning into God right over here. You know, just putting my head on his shoulder or her shoulder and just loving and trusting and knowing. So find your hallway buddies and enjoy their company while you wait for the beautiful opening doorway to your next adventure. And I'm going to bring this home a little bit with a meditation. If you guys would like me to lead that meditation, I didn't know if you wanted me to do that, but I assumed. Okay, so take the things out of your hands. Get your body all relaxed. Take some deep breaths. If you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes or you can look down with a soft gaze and just be here, be present with this being, this beautiful, wonderful, amazing being that you are. And I want you to imagine that you're looking like forward into your life and you can see many, many years into the future. And you can see hills where things great happen and you're happy and excited. And you can also see the valleys in between those good experiences where hardships will come, where hardships will happen. If we're living, things are going to happen. There's going to be ups and downs. But I want you to see in those valleys, there's this beautiful, sparkly white fog that fills the valleys. And this fog is the Holy Spirit energy, the light that is God present in our lives. And so this fog is all around you, enveloping you and with you, and you're breathing in it, and it becomes part of you when you're in these valleys. And I want you to make a promise to yourself that you'll remember when you hit those valleys, that white light fog is all around you, and that you are never alone. You're not walking alone. You're walking with God. You're walking with Spirit. And you'll make it through. And there'll be another hill, another peak experience that you'll come to. But be present with yourself in the valleys and in the peaks. Because this is the juiciness of life. This is the contrast that makes the peaks that we go through that much more enjoyable. And so when you come to those valleys in your life, you'll remember this is the juiciness. This is where I'm meant to be. Spirit knows what I need. And I'll have you take one more deep cleansing breath. And at the end of the out breath, you can open your eyes. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and visit with you guys today. Namaste.